Okay, so when we talk about the bass, snapper, and grouper family, if you notice on the top right, you have this Hershey Kiss gill plate, as I like to call it, because it's the same shape as a Hershey Kiss candy on its side. If you notice, there's that same conical or pyramidal type shape. Many fish have rounded gill plates, but the bass, snapper, grouper family, they're more triangular. So if you see that, that's going to tell you right away. Medium activity fish, hard boned, mild flavor, can cook any way you want to do it. This particular fish, the striped bass, is traditionally found on the east coast of America and the Gulf Coast. It gets its name from its long black stripes on a silver background. It has two dorsal fins, a single anal fin, and presented here up top, it's in the round, which means just as it comes out of the water. And then you have the two fillets down below, pretty easy to identify with the prominent bloodline. You may notice a zip tie in that fish's mouth. That's called a commercial gill tag. That indicates the fish was caught by a licensed fisherman. It'll tell you where, when, how, and by whom. Some people like to have consistency in their restaurants, whether it's the same shape and size tomato or the same shape and size fish. The hybrid striped bass is, as you can see on the right-hand side, a hybrid of two fish. The top fish is the white bass and the middle fish is the striped bass, resulting in the hybrid. So it's got the small head of the white, the two fins of both parents, the broken stripes of the white, and the dark stripes of the striped bass. This fish takes really well to fresh water. It's traditionally raised down south. They come around in 1 to 2 pounds, depending if you get them gutted or not. But you can serve one fish for 2 people easily for a really nice sized meal, or maybe even one fish for 4 people if you're going to do multiple courses. The black sea bass gets its name because, well, it's black and it lives in salt water. We find these on the East Coast from Canada down to Florida, plus the Gulf of Mexico. It's also about the same size as the hybrid, 1 to 2 pounds. This fish makes a stunning presentation. If you leave its skin on, you have this jet black skin and a really nice white flesh. That gives you super high natural contrast. If you were to roast it whole, you got these big, beautiful zebra stripe looking fins, a bluish black body. This fish takes really well to salt crusting. You could put a few slits in it, rub it down with some oil, some salt, pepper. You could lightly grill it for a couple of minutes on each side. Really, truly amazing fish. They live towards the bottom of the seafloor where they're eating clams and crabs, mussels, scallops, baby oysters, which gives them a really nice creamy shellfish-like flavor, very reminiscent of scallops. When we talk about snappers, there's roughly 250 species of snappers that are commercially available. This one is the true red snapper, the Lujanus campechanus. We know it's a real red snapper because not only does it have a red body, but it also has a distinct black ring around its eye, much like eyeliner. There's many snappers that are red, but this is the only one with the black ring around its eye. They're caught in warm water traditionally. They are reef dwellers. All snappers have compressed bodies, which means they're very thin when you're looking at them head on. They have very sharp teeth. They've got that Hershey Kiss gill plate. They have a very good yield for their size. And it's a mild, medium activity fish, so it pairs well with many things. Here we have one of my favorite snappers. It's got many names, most commonly called a vermilion snapper because of its color. Sometimes it's called a Caribbean snapper because of where it lives. And alternately, some people call it beeliner snapper because fishermen will usually set out multiple lines. The A lines catch the money and the B lines catch the dinner. Some people like to say it's a beeliner because if you look at its body, behind the dorsal fin, it also has yellow olive oil colored stripes that you could draw a B on that body and they would seem to be natural. This fish is one of the only snappers that doesn't have that traditional triangular shaped body with a very high slanted forehead. It's more elongated, almost like a salmon. Very distinctive appearance. One of the most common snappers we see on campus is the silk snapper. This snapper is caught all throughout the warm waters of the Atlantic, where when we delineate those, we usually say the tropics, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, 30 degrees to 30 degrees. Because the Atlantic's narrow up off the southern coast and it warms up quickly, We can go a little further north, about all the way up to Nags Head or the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So from there on north, it starts to get cold, and then from there to Rio de Janeiro, it's nice and warm, and then as you get closer to the South Pole, it gets colder again. So silk snappers have this nice pink body. They don't have the ring around the eye, but if you look from the lateral line to the dorsal fin, you may notice at a 45-degree angle, it looks like it's got dotted yellow lines. Those lines go up into the dorsal fin, and it has a slight yellow tinting in the dorsal, and then the dotted yellow lines along its body. Maybe the easiest snapper to remember the name of would be the yellowtail. Gets its name from its distinctive yellow tail. Its lateral line is yellow. It's got yellow fins. It's got yellow spots. If you're wondering why the two fish look different there, the underwater photography wasn't using the best flash, and without that red wavelength of light, everything tends to look blue underwater. But trust me, when it comes out of the water, it's going to look just like the pink one down below. These fish are really nice. They're generally caught in the reefs as well. You can sometimes even catch them right from the shore. We have a policy with our purveyor that we'll just take any snapper they can get us. We have, in the name of education, and maybe even if we had a restaurant, if we have snapper on the menu, and since they're medium activity and they all tend to taste very similar, we'll just say, send us whatever snapper. And on the menu, you would write snapper instead of red or yellowtail. Gives you a little bit more flexibility. Another easily identifiable snapper would be the lane or candy snapper. It gets its name candy because it's brightly colored like a candy wrapper, and it gets its name lane because, well, there's 8 parallel lines the width of a magic marker forming lanes, almost like bowling lanes or driving lanes, along the side of the fish. If you were to pry open this fish's mouth, you would also notice it's got the same color yellow tongue, and the whole inside of the mouth is yellow. It has that classic standard snapper shape. You notice a black spot in the back. That's called the false eye. Many reef dwellers have that to either make them seem bigger when they're halfway sticking out from behind a rock, or to attract fish to the back of them, to the tail, because if a predator comes head on, it can't swim away. Here you can see a red grouper. We'll just lump groupers all into one category. If you were to kind of squint your eyes and look at the fish without fins, it almost has a distinctive football shape. You notice the head and the gill plate are about 1/3 of the body, so you're not going to have the best yield out of them. And they traditionally have very large mouths that are downward turned, big lips, and they live in the reef, and they can drop that mouth really quickly, and they create a vacuum effect, so they're sucking a lot of prey at one time. These fish are prone to a reef intoxication called ciguatera. Ciguatoxin poisoning is from a buildup of the ciguatoxin, which accumulates in small fish, and then a big fish eats a lot of small fish, and a bigger fish ate the medium-sized fish that ate all the small fish, and the grouper, so on and so forth, keeps eating them, and it builds up in their body. You probably remember ciguatoxin from your food safety class. If not, this would be a great time to look it up and see all the terrible things you're going to get from it. How do you avoid it? Well, fish that are 5 pounds or less, or buy from a reputable purveyor that tests the water. The tilefish is sometimes referred to as a golden bass. We call it a bass because it's got the Hershey Kiss gill plate and it looks like a bass. It's got a medium activity lifestyle, so it swims like a bass. And it's got hard bone structure, so it cuts like a bass. Technically, bass don't have adipose fins, and the tilefish is really just a family of 2 fish. You notice that adipose fin on top of its head. It actually uses it like a lure. They'll take their big anal fin, like you can see on the watercolor one down below, and scoop out a burrow on the ocean floor. There they'll live, and they will keep their head out of the hole, and that lure will float in the current, and other curious fish will come poking at it, and this fish will launch out of its hole, grab the fish, and bring it back down and have a meal. This makes them extremely predatorial. They're one of the top 4 predators in the ocean, so their health concern, where it says mercury down there, comes from bioaccumulation of eating many other fish that are higher on the food chain that have accumulated mercury either through bioaccumulation or biomagnification. Mercury is prevalent in many water sources. It's water soluble. The 4 main culprits that the government says to keep an eye on are tilefish, shark, king mackerel, and swordfish. Yet, They also state you can safely consume 12 ounces a week, which when you extend out the math comes out to 39 pounds a year. Being that most Americans eat 16 pounds of fish a year or less, I would say we're in good shape.